Hello and good afternoon. How are you? This is episode 23 of the Kids Health series with Lawrence August. And Happy New Year, everybody. Hi, Lawrence. How are you?
Hello there, Heidi. Happy New Year. Episode 23. This is our Jordan episode.
It is. It is.
Let's go.
Oh, perfectly fit.
The
Yes, we're
GOAT.
going to dunk it.
Sorry, all you LeBron fans out there, but
You know,
this is Jordan
I
territory.
my LeBron stories, man. Those LeBron posse isn't. They're not my favorite. They've taken all my craft service stuff. They used to
See, just
clean out
another
the
reason.
trailers.
Yeah.
Now, Michael, I heard on the other hand was a gentleman. Okay.
23. Yeah, I got some Michael stories, but for another time. But yeah, let's do
So New
this.
Year's went? You were well. Everything was fun. You're feeling good on New Year's Day, and we're 2 weeks in.
Yeah, we're 2 weeks in, and I thought it would be fun, Heidi, to talk about this phenomenon that happens about mid-January with our New Year's resolutions, right?
You mean
What
they start to go?
this is the this is the time where a little bit of maybe a pep talk is needed. Maybe this Jordan episode is okay, guys. We're in the locker room now, and came out to a good start. Starting to get a little shaky. And what are those ways that we can continue to stay motivated, or if we even need to be motivated at all? Have I grabbed your attention? Maybe we don't need to be motivated. Maybe we're already motivated. Maybe there's ways to get motivation.
Motivated?
Are you motivated to listen? Yeah, because I think this is the time when that word gets thrown around a lot, or at least the idea of like, okay, people get inspired. People get inspired by possibility. They get inspired by the new year. There's something about having a clean slate, and let's just forget the, year that we just left, and we're going to accomplish all these great things. And I think that's fine. Like we talked about it. Or for some of you, hippy dippy pagan types that are waiting for the spring to kind of start fresh, this will be good for you come like mid-March or April. But I think, we all have, I think there's something very human about looking forward to, and we lay out our plans. And I think that there's this idea that, well, some people are just more motivated than others, right? And I want to kind of debunk a little bit of that today. How about that?
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely perfect. And it's not like good effort, good job, back to the bottom. It's like
Right.
let's motivate.
Right.
Gentle reminders and care shares and human experience tales.
essentially, human behavior really comes down to two main things, right? We're pursuing pleasure, or we're avoiding pain. That's kind of what we do. And, unfortunately for some people, they wait until the pain is so great that they don't have a choice to, but to change. And other people have a lot of pleasurable things that they're motivated by that they can aim toward, toward their goals. If we actually, though, look at this idea of motivation, what you really find is, if you kind of study successful people, they're not necessarily the most motivated, right? What they tend to have going for them is they have systems that are in place. We've talked about this, right? Systems sort of being superior to goals. They have systems in place that allow them to operate in such a way to not rely on, motivation. And I will say, that word, we can kind of play with the semantics of it. But again, if we're pursuing pleasure, avoiding pain, we're always sort of motivated by something, right? If you're just sitting on the couch all day, you're motivated by the comfort of the couch, or the fear of extra, right? So there's that. But what we're talking about is like trying to kind of get after something, right? We're trying to make a significant change. So in that context, I really want to talk about motivation in that frame. And
perfect.
What we found is, and one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I think I said this in one of our very early episodes, totally bears repeating, is we are far more likely to act our way into a feeling than we are to feel our way into an action, right? Meaning that once we kind of get moving, I always like to say it's mo. motion, momentum, then the motivation. And we tend to think that
Mm.
the motivation's gonna come first. Once in a while, that's true. Once in a while, we get lucky and we just get hit with motivation. That's great. But what happens if that ship doesn't come in? What are the actual strategies we can use to kind of create motivation?
Mm.
And that is where we get that act our way into a feeling. And so I want to give kind of some examples in my own life that things that I actually use, that
Mhm.
parents that are listening, you can use this for yourself, and you can teach this to kids as well. And I do all the time with the kids and families that I work with. And one of the
Okay.
things is self-talk, right? And so how
Okay.
we speak to ourselves is really important. In fact, it's so important that when they looked at Navy SEALs and the candidates for Navy SEALs, who became a SEAL and who couldn't make the cut, it had nothing
Mm.
to do with their physical abilities. It had nothing to do with their age or any of their metrics, their strength, all of that stuff. Both groups were equal in terms of physical abilities. Where they departed was the successful group, the ones that got through and became SEALs, were the ones that had the best self-talk.
Mm.
Military decided to start
Gotcha.
teaching self-talk. And self-talk is exactly as it is. It's how you talk to yourself. So
It's
here's
like
an
your inner
example.
coach. Your inner
The other
coach, right?
day, I
Mhm.
was not feeling like getting my workout in. I just wasn't. I was feeling low energy. But what I've kind of implemented is a system of self-talk where I will
Mhm.
say out loud, very easy to do, and it doesn't require a lot of physical energy. And that's why these strategies are good, because it's all about aim low, set the bar low for that initial strategy to get that momentum going, that motion, momentum. Then you find the motivation. So, what I simply say to myself out loud is, I don't feel like working out.
Mm.
And that's okay. And that's okay. But I know one thing, if I stood up right now, I'd be a little closer to feeling that way. Right. So, I'm thinking up forward a little bit and saying, I don't feel this way right now. I understand it's just temporary. And if I just stand up, I still might not feel like it, but I'm going to be closer.
Mhm. Baby step.
Right.
Baby step.
And when I'm talking to a client, especially like adults, right? I didn't have any time to exercise. And I say this in all serious back to them. Do you have 3 seconds? What does that mean? Well, 3 seconds. Could you stand up? Could you stand up and kind of run in place real fast for 3 seconds? Well, yeah. Okay. Right. Time is going to go to zero on people all the time, right?
Mhm.
Where I don't feel like I can fit these things in. Well, we can fit in little micro doses
Yeah.
of exercise and activity all the time.
Yeah.
So to go back to the self-talk,
Mm.
now I'm standing. Now I'm like, okay, I can kind of check in. Still don't feel like it, but you know what? If I do 5 squats, my heart's going to be pumping, my body's going to be a little warmer. I'm probably going to feel a little closer to wanting to get into the workout, right? So what I'm doing is I'm learning how to nudge myself into that. And that is a skill that we can
Mhm.
practice.
Mhm.
In fact, if people push back on that, well, I don't even want to stand up. Okay, wiggle your finger. The crazy thing on behavioral science is this is even shown to work. So Heidi, can I get you to wiggle your finger?
Red rum.
Okay, yeah, wiggle your finger. Now start to open and close your hand. Okay, now you're
This is the
opening and
good
closing.
hand.
Right, so you're starting to just kind of get yourself
Mhm.
into your body that, okay, now let's just kind of move our arm up and down, right?
Mm, mm, mm,
And let's
mm,
put a smile on
mm.
our face. Get a smile on your
I know
face,
you
right?
can't help
Now,
it.
all of a sudden, there's a different physiology happening than there was about 5 seconds before,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And to all of this, to actually also give yourself an exit ramp if it's simply not going to happen on that day. And that
Mhm.
sounds counterintuitive, but when you allow yourself just the ability to just start, do something small, but with the full permission of backing out if it's not going to happen, but never giving up on the process of get to the start line.
Mm.
And that is just one way. there are other ways that can involve setting up your environment for success,
Right.
making the easier, the more desired habit easier to accomplish. And it might be for some people having running shoes,
That's
nearby,
what I
and
was
just
picturing. Yeah, your
put the
workout clothes laying by. Yeah.
workout clothes, right?
Yeah.
It kind of making an easy play to just kind of slip into that.
Mhm.
And what that goes into, which is another component of successful people, is the idea of an identity. And we kind of touched on that last episode, Heidi, when I was speaking on become a runner,
Mhm.
right? So people have a big goal like, I'm going to run a marathon this year. And that's great. But again, what happens the day after the race?
Right.
If you are not identifying as someone who runs, you end up feeling deflated.
Mhm.
You run the race and you got your little prize and you're like, well, now what? Because
Mhm.
if you didn't embody the identity of a runner, you're less likely to just sort of continue that path. And that's what this is
Yeah.
about, right? True change and true sustainability, not some short-lived temporary thing. How many people lose weight only to gain it back? A lot.
Yeah.
Because
That the root.
they've looked at this thing of losing weight is this kind of thing that, oh, I'm doing right now. I am dieting. And there's a
Mhm.
difference between dieting and diet.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
There's people that diet and there's people that are, you know, diet meaning that this is the way that they just eat. This is the way they live now.
Mhm. Well, those little baby steps too are important for not just as far as the workout realm too. Like, let's say you want to get your vitamins and supplements and
Yeah.
minerals together, or you're going to switch your coffee to mushroom, or just line yourself up for success. Have
Yeah.
things at your fingertip, ready to go.
Right
So,
here, right?
yeah.
So I have a system, another system I have in terms of supplements, right?
Uh
I
huh.
have them
Okay.
on my desk. I have them on my right side.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I have to take them, I'll take a supplement and I'll move it to the left when I've taken it. And
Hey, I got to remember that one.
I have a visual representation
That's
now
a good point.
of what
Yeah.
has been taken and what needs to be taken.
Yep. Okay.
And then by the
That's
end of
my
the day,
everyday combo. Did I take that?
right, because if you keep them in, I learned that because when I had them on one side and I was putting them back, I'd be like, oh my God, I forgot if I even took that. And so now it's a very clear distinction of I can visually see what needs to be taken by just going what's on the right, what's on the left of my
Mhm.
computer right now.
Mhm.
And so that's an example of just kind of setting it up for success so I can visually see, what is going on. Other ways might be, uh, putting a pull-up bar, in the hallway and saying every time I go to the
Yeah.
bathroom, I do 5 pull-ups or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but
Or even mhm. I
yeah,
was
no,
gonna
go
say,
on.
like, mental health wise, like, for me, my debilitating thing is and there's a great meme for it, I can't quite remember, but the best way to accomplish things or something is just to start with one or your my to-dos. Like, even just putting on my calendar reminder that pops up on my phone. Simple thing like call my mom back or write this curriculum or just these things because when it starts to add up and you get overwhelmed, then this starts to shut down and then you escape. You go for escapism or something or numbing. And it's like, no, 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 no.
Absolutely.
These are the patterns I wanted to break this year. Remind yourself so it's right there. And all you got to do is just pick up the phone or, oh, send that email, pay
Yeah.
that bill. Get
Yeah.
those things done because when they add up, it can cripple you mentally and then physically you drop too. That's my
Absolutely. And
side.
what's
You can
and
see the
by
my war this year is my mental game.
yeah, and the mental game, but and you brought up something really important about tasks is I'm a big fan of assigning those things to specific times.
Oh yeah.
When
Good.
you have your
Yeah.
to-do list,
Yeah.
assign everything to a time if possible. Because what sometimes will happen is you say, "Oh, this is what I'm gonna do," but knowing when you'll do it really allows that extra added feature of and it can take away a lot of anxiety because when you
Yes.
have something on the schedule that you know you have a time attached and you know you'll be able to accomplish that, you can kind of get those little victories out of the way. And a lot
Yeah.
of this stuff are those small things like call your mom, get that
Yes.
pile of laundry done. Those little things that if we just kind of tuck them in our head and they're kind of gangling around and rattling around, that creates a lot of background noise, and that can interfere with
Exactly.
our mental health because then we become a lot more vulnerable through the day with everything else coming at us. But when we
Yeah.
have our tasks assigned to times, they're kind of on the schedule. And I would
Yeah.
say always put yourself on that schedule.
Yeah. If
Check
not
in with
first.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whether it doesn't even have to be like a workout necessarily, but whatever it might be, saying, "Okay, this is Heidi time is 3:30 to 4:30 or 3 to 4." And what's important is if you have something scheduled that you're planning on doing for yourself, right? And let's say you don't feel like doing that, don't give up the time. That's an
Mm.
important one because what ends up happening is people will schedule time for a workout and then let's say then they don't feel like it. And then let's say they've done all the steps that Lawrence told them to do and they still don't feel like it. Well, don't give up that time slot. Meaning, if you just want to veg for that hour, claim that spot as your own because what ends up happening is people just give up that section of time and
Mm.
now they surrender their life over to some other person's schedule because that's really what happens, right? When you open up an email, you're on another person's time for that moment, right?
Very true. Very true.
So when
Yep.
you preserve that time slot for yourself, holding on to that is going to be a really big piece of your mental health puzzle because you're always
Yeah.
going to have that for you. It's non-negotiable.
It's
We show
yours.
up all the time for other people. Think about, I can speak for myself certainly, is like all of the things that we do for others, for our employer, for our boss, for our spouse, or kids, we're
Yeah.
always showing up. We have this feeling of duty and obligation. We just don't do that for ourselves when we wait
I
till whatever's
know.
left to frick over at the end of the day
Mhm.
instead of paying ourselves first and going, I 100% know I'm going to have at least this for myself today.
Yeah. Absolutely. Some of those parents I work with, I work with their kids, and that's their windfall at the holidays or birthdays. They're like, please take time for yourself. Like, go here, literally as a gift certificate to go do a red light sauna. Like, go get some light yourself of all the light you've given our kids. Like it's if you're not doing it for yourself, eventually your tank's going to run out and you're not going to be able to provide for all these people that you think you have to hurry up and provide for. You got to take care of yourself.
Empty tank. Yeah.
We talked about that too.
You
And the
just can't
oxygen
pour from an
mask, putting yours
can't
on
pour from
first.
the empty cup. It's all
Yeah.
true, and yet
Yeah.
we need to deal those reminders
Yeah.
because
That's
in
my
fact,
Mhm.
go on.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that, in fact, I even invite people to reframe it. Like, I think we do a lot for others because we think that's the best thing to do. But if you can reframe it in saying it's actually selfish to not take time for yourself, meaning you're not as good for them if you don't fill up your cup,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then put that moral imperative on yourself that actually allows me to be better for others. If I'm really, really concerned for caring for others, I actually owe it to them
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
do this for me. It's actually not selfish. In fact, it's selfless to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's an important reminder.
Oh my gosh, yes. And any parent out there knows, no matter if you have a newborn or a teen, it's imperative that you take care of yourself first because you're going to be teaching them and modeling behavior of taking care of yourself. Like, for instance, starting this off, this is a treasure for me. Every 2 weeks, we have been meeting, bad recordings aside,
Yeah.
for over a year. This is my time. I'm very happy to do this. And I pulled an all nighter with my daughter who's fighting a fever. And I will be there with her to do that because I believe a fever needs to be assisted. It takes a lot of work, and an exhausted, sick child you needs help.
Yeah.
But when I got to the point of emptying my tank, knowing I have this important thing to do today, I laid low, I rested, I showered, I groomed. I made sure my time was set for this. And I hope that wasn't a bad example because my daughter's doing okay and she's here. But it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this now. And here's all your
No,
setup. And I took care of myself to be able to do it. Not, Lawrence, I'm too tired. I was up all night. My daughter needed me. I can't do this. I'm like, no, this is my commitment that I'm honored to do. I'm going to make sure I
And every
honor the
time you do
time.
that, Heidi, every time you do that, you create that resilience and you strengthen yourself and
Yeah.
you there's a section of the brain, blanking on the name of it right now, that actually gets stronger and grows when we go through little challenges, and they've
Mhm.
determined that that's essentially can be linked to what would be called the will to live. There's like an Andrew Huberman
Uh,
clip on that,
yeah.
where, whenever we kind of overcome challenges, we build that resilience. And people that kind of withdraw from life and no longer have a sense of will and purpose, that area of the brain shrinks and we kind of
Mm,
disintegrate and we wither. We no longer are kind of here to kind of contribute to this world, right? It's that
yeah.
will to live. And
Oh, yeah.
we build up that through our life, through those meeting those challenges head on. So
Yeah.
I will show up. I'll show up for myself, put myself together,
Yeah.
honor my commitments, and I'm just that much better for it.
Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
I think it's all really, really important stuff to impart in our children, right? Like
Yes.
things will be tough, and
Yes.
not lie to them and act like it's just going to be easy. In fact, there's something beautiful about that. If we look at mental health and we look at happiness, the happiest people are typically people that have challenges in life,
And they
because
overcome.
they have meaning. They're engaged. They're overcoming and getting that feeling of accomplishment from that. That is what uplifts mental health. When
Yes.
everything is
Yes.
sort of like kind of laid out for you, you have very little agency and ownership over that. It's sort of there, and you weren't part of building that. And that is what we are meant to do. We're meant to be part of building something. And that is what gives us that feeling of empowerment, that we love
Yeah.
that word, right?
Yeah. That's one
Um,
of my favorites.
so,
Well, there.
kind of really
Mhm.
important to talk to kids about.
Yeah, huge about kids, and it helps with the education too. Our philosophies at school, it's the mind, body, will of the child. And these little feelings of accomplishment all day can be achieved. And it's not by like finishing a problem solving. It's even starting your day and being an lead educator, being able to go, okay, there's a lot going on. You run the field, you do some
Yeah,
relays, do something to get them in their body. And that alone, that out breath is such a achievement that they can sit down then and soak in information, and then they can find all the little achievements all day. But if they're not finding the will to move forward with something, they're gonna not ever feel accomplished in their next step,
correct,
it seems.
correct.
So, and it's the baby steps. I'm telling you, I work with the spectrum of kids. And it's hard using that word now because everyone's like, oh, a
I know,
spectrum. I go,
I
sure,
know.
one kid's probably on the spectrum, but I'm talking
Right,
about a wide range of children that
yeah.
come from different backgrounds. But the universal theme is empowering them through accomplishments, little ones, simple as
Little accomplishments,
raking,
yeah.
wiping off their desk, sitting appropriately in their chair with their feet flat so they can write and be their best. Oh, look at their letters. You're improving little bits all day long. And that's where, it's fun being their little cheerleader. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah,
their educator, but I'm the cheerleader too, because they're really doing the education process themselves.
absolutely, absolutely. One thing leads to another, and we're priming ourselves for the next moment, and creating that momentum is key. Let's shift gears a little bit to the
Okay.
flip side here and talk a little bit about fear.
Oh
I
yeah,
wanted to
good one.
talk about the topic of fear, and I wanted to talk about
Yeah.
how it relates to motivation in particular, because, fear is one of these trigger words for people that, some people is like, I want to be fearless. I'm going to avoid fear. Fear is poison. They have a very negative relationship with it. Um, my favorite quote that I could share about fear is that fear is the best parts of ourself begging for a chance.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's a
I
badass
like
quote. I
that.
wish I came
Yeah.
up with it, but
Ah,
it really sets a fire under my butt when I think of it that way. And when we look at motivation studies, there's some very interesting stuff that they discovered actually through mice, right? And so mice, the classic study is the mouse in the maze, right? With the cheese, right? That's sort of the classic thing is like you put some cheese at the end of a maze and you can watch a mouse fly through that maze like nobody's business, right? Uh, but what they also discovered is what can motivate a mouse even more is the presence of cat hair, right? Because they are afraid of cats.
Oh, the fear.
Now,
Yes. Okay.
what's very interesting about this is if you were to take some cat hair and you were to place that in the middle of the maze, that would paralyze the mouse,
Hmm.
right? Because that cat hair is right in the middle. They're afraid to move forward. And in a lot of ways, we can look at that cat hair as our fears.
Hmm.
And when you begin talking to people as I do, you kind of uncover a lot of people's fears, whether they might be short term or long term. And sometimes they may be very serious. Somebody may say, I'm afraid of dying young, right? Like I'm afraid of being 450 pounds and being put in a cart in Walmart and this kind of stuff.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And in some ways where I'm afraid of getting this disease or I'm pre-diabetic and I'm afraid of diabetes, right? And it
Hmm.
and it when we're thinking of it that way, it can be like that cat hair where it's in front of us and
Yeah.
it paralyzes us
Yeah.
and we're not taking any action because how can we move forward if our fear is in front of us like that? But if we can take that fear and if you can take that cat hair and place it behind you,
Hmm.
right? Because that's what you can do. You can put cat hair behind a mouse and that mouse hauls even faster to get to that cheese, meaning that we don't have to simply dismiss or avoid or ignore the fact that fear exists. We can understand it, use it, place it, and say, that's back there. That's somewhere I'm moving away from that, but I'm moving toward this more importantly. There's this light
More
path, this
choices.
open
Hmm.
path of choice and possibility in front of you when that diabetes or that 450-pound version of you that you think might happen can be behind you, kind of coming at you. And it's okay to allow that to motivate you. It's okay to acknowledge and do it anyway, and to be courageous and to build courage because build courage is very different than becoming fearless. That's
Hmm.
different.
Hmm.
Courage is feeling that fear and taking action anyway. But what are those mental tricks that we can do? And so if we can get into that place of visualizing, like, okay, these are things that I can place it behind me as ways to propel myself forward. Then I have an open path to what the goal is and put our eyes on the prize and to visualize where we want to go rather than the race car driver analogy, which I brought up before of when you look at the wall, you hit the wall. Don't think of an
Hmm.
elephant. But when we're able to kind of clear the path behind us and look forward, and really that's dopamine, right? Looking forward too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And framing that fear in such a way that it can actually be a part of the motivation process and not be paralyzing us.
Mm.
Make sense?
It does make sense because we can't help it. This planet was thrown into the depths of programmable fear for a while, and we had choices of living in it or living within it or living in it but not of it. And it depends where you put it in your life. It's there. There's a possibility, but is it going to cripple you? The fright or flight thing.
Yeah.
Um, you can use that chemical that's happening in your fright or flight. And what would be a good tool to make a good choice? I stop myself right there because that fright or flight does happen. I get knowing the empowerment, knowing these empowering tools will help you just lean into it and step
Yeah.
into it. Go,
Well,
no, no, this is not going to overtake me. Hmm.
one thing we can do in that is understand our nervous system and understand the autonomic nervous system of fight or flight.
Okay.
And when we're feeling the overwhelm, we can
Mhm.
override it with our breath.
The breath
And
is, yeah.
that's when we go into, and then again, that's a skill, right? So breathe through the nose, 4 or 5 rounds of something like box breathing.
Hmm.
Again, to bring up Navy SEALs again,
Uh huh.
uh,
They know
seems to
what's
come back
up.
to them. but they employ box breathing
Mhm.
when under high stress, and so that is a way to override that, nervous system response.
Yeah.
Another way is to go kind of the opposite direction, which is a very interesting way to look at it, um, is when you're feeling the overwhelm, do do some sprints, run around, jump
Mm.
around. In other words, meet that because in nature, when we're confronted with a challenge, we might have to run from it very quickly, and that's
Mhm.
that's the the flight. We're running.
Yeah.
If we can actually initiate that, a high level of sympathetic nervous system, right? So this is the paradox.
Mhm.
The high level of sympathetic nervous system actually helps to crank up the parasympathetic nervous system. Another example would be cold ice, like ice water on your face.
Uh-huh.
So ice on your face, and you do that, but a few minutes later, you feel calm because what you
Yeah.
did there is you just put your foot on the gas of it voluntarily, cranked all of the catecholamines and all these wonderful goody compounds, and then we get the come down, and then the parasympathetic wants to rise to meet that. So
Mm.
that's another way to do that.
Mhm.
So there's sort of
Mhm.
two different strategies there, but getting in your body with breath is really useful.
Oh, yeah.
It
For all
slows
ages.
everything down, and
Mhm.
to the point of making a decision, how do we make a good choice? Well, we need to be in the right state first. We always say, like, don't make a decision when you're angry, don't say something when you're right in the heat of the moment. That's what
Get
that means,
neutral.
and so
Yeah.
what we wanna do is get neutral, right? Put the car in neutral. We don't have to be positive, we don't have to be negative, let's just get to baseline. Then we're actually in a better position, and then we can actually then kind of ask a question of, like, what's the best choice I could make right here? And you're gonna see clearly. You can't really see clearly as far as decision making goes when you're in, kind of feeling spun out.
Yeah.
Um, and it
You
goes
can't
to
hear
the
that
point of
inner coach. You can't
yeah,
hear
and it
your
goes
inner
to the point
coach
of
go, "Come on."
buying
Mhm.
yourself some time, which is really what a lot of this is you
Mhm.
buy yourself a little bit of you give yourself a little gap before you make that play. And then what you do is then you just allow yourself to make the play. If you've done that, you did your work there, right?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
one thing for, feeling people feel hungry, they feel emotionally hungry, right? We've talked about hunger before, like why people eat. Sometimes it has nothing to do with being hungry. So a simple rule of thumb is okay, I feel hungry, but like, am I really hungry? Like ask yourself, okay, could I eat an entire meal? Right? Asking yourself the question, like, if you can't eat an entire meal, are you really hungry? And then say, okay, I'm going to have 15 ounces of water. I'm going to wait 15 minutes. And then however I feel at that point, I'm going to be okay with whatever the decision is. But what you always want to keep is that system.
Yeah.
That's the difference because that system over time will pay off. There'll be times you'll do the 15 ounces of water, you'll wait 15 minutes, you'll tick all the boxes, but yeah, you know what? I still want the donut.
Yeah.
Right? It's just how it
Yeah,
will
yeah.
be. But again, giving yourself the permission to like make that choice if that's needed, but don't make that choice if you haven't set yourself up, if you haven't got yourself to neutral.
Yeah.
Learn to
Makes
get
sense.
yourself to the starting point, whether it's the starting point to be motivated or the starting point to make decisions. When you learn about how to get to the state, and these are easy plays, there's low barrier to entry to breathing,
Mhm.
right? There's low barrier to entry to standing, to wiggling your finger. All of these things are just they're one step away and they're easy plays to do. Those
Mhm.
can be non-negotiable because those are quite simply there's no excuse in that.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're doing that to prime the potential next phase. Am I
Yeah.
going to be taking action and I'm going to be getting my tasks done, my to-do list, like setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And then the scheduling, right? It all starts to come together. Well, you're
Uh-huh.
not leaving
Uh-huh.
it really up to chance. I think a lot of these things come down to this putting things on the schedule or let me wiggle my finger or setting up my environment come down to I'm going to live a life by design and I'm going to live a life of intention. It's an intentional life that way. You have
Mhm.
some connection to I'm not living haphazardly. I'm not throwing caution to the wind. It's my life. And I'm able to kind of grab the pen, that analogy of like, are you going to let other people kind of write the story of your life? Like, grab the pen
Mhm.
and take ownership, and you are the author of your story.
Mm.
And we just need to know how to start writing chapters. And a lot of this
Yes,
applies, actually, if you are any writers out there, just write. That's kind of the advice. Like, with writer's block, it's
it's
like,
true.
just start writing. And
Yep.
Heidi, you're a journaler, you're a writer, right?
But you're saying all this, and I'm like, yeah, Pop, come on. Start writing. But I realize I write.
You
Writing
do.
intros to my things. I got this I have a guest coming next week, and he's like, "What was the most beautiful entry you did for our show?" And I'm like, "It just flew out of me."
You're a writer,
So you got to write if you write.
right? You're a writer, and through that, it's that process of doing that.
Mhm.
You hear about the most prolific writers, whether it's Ray Bradbury, Stephen King, people that just put out like massive amounts of material.
Mhm.
They don't wait around for the motivation ship to come in. They've developed those habits of, I'm going to write. I'm just going to get the reps
Letting it
in.
come through. Yep, yep, yep. Get the reps in.
And
Yep.
I'll give myself permission if I'm gonna shit the bed. I'm sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
shit the bed today.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And
it's the systems that
yeah.
matter.
Oops. I think we're all born with our own coach. Like we have come with this different set of skill sets, which hopefully with the right parents and educators in play when you're children, you'll be set on a path to uncover that skill. Right, Bo?
Yeah.
But I can't help but
Bo
think
knows.
about Bo knows. There's this reality show we kind of binged for a minute, the Giant and I, and it was what the heck is the name of it? They're basically Navy SEALs took these B-list celebrities or whatever and put them through a series of challenges, and to see who would actually make it to the end that could, if it were a real case scenario, potentially become a Navy SEAL. You'd think it was like these super soldiery kind of guys and stuff. There was the waifest little chick, won one of them, but that whole competition, she was
Mhm.
her own coach. You just saw it. You're like, she doesn't have the strength of these men, but her mind got her through some challenges that look like your worst nightmare. But
Mhm.
you could see her work it out. Like you don't know how loud the voice is or what is, but you could see her talk herself through these things and the body followed. It was pretty incredible to watch because we were just into these tasks. We're like, whoa, would you do that? Would you do that? But
Yeah.
here's these little tiny little things doing it. And you see them saying, I can do this in their little confessionals. I knew I could do it. And I visioned myself being at the end, and they were. Um, really just it was pretty. And then the biggest, craziest, muscliest NFL dude was scared. Like the fear won and he dropped out. Like he was like, I can't do
Yeah.
that. I can't swim.
The
I'm out.
the
And then the other
self-talk?
person, yeah, the other girl who did have a fear too, who did drown as a child, overcame it. They walked her through the process. She walked her through self and was wound up being submerged underwater and facing fears and overcoming it. It's kind of cool to watch. Yeah. I don't always vouch for a lot of reality shows, but things like that, it's like you can't beat what the human body does or
Absolutely.
mimic it.
And I think that we can look to, because we did mention the Navy SEALs 3 times in this episode, and I think that we can look at the
So bright.
the extremes to
Yeah.
inform things about human condition, behavior, motivation. When you look to the people that are living on the edge of these things, what are the high performers out there on the edge? What are the common qualities that anybody can actually learn something from? Right? You don't have to be a Navy SEAL. That's not the point. But
Yeah, right.
what are the qualities that allow people to overcome? Because there's going to be things in life that we're all going to have to meet head on, and we're either going to wither or we're going to kind of rise up. And
Mhm.
better to sort of build those reserves when times are good, you know, voluntarily putting ourselves through challenges, voluntarily adding stressors in the form of
Yeah.
exercise or challenges, or learning a language, or learning how to type, or learning a new skill that we're not good at, that we can slowly become good at. It carries over to other areas in our life. We will need those characteristics. So when you're just learning one skill, just remember that there's carryover
Mhm.
to all of these things. And so if you're a young kid and you got your first job and you're working at Starbucks or the mall or something, and you think this is the stupidest job. What, oh my God. Or you have to do chores that your parents are asking you to do. Just know that the way that you take those things on is setting yourself up for later, and
Mm,
how you're going to frame your reality and how you look at the value of work and what it's doing for you as a person. It's who you become. It's about who we become
yes.
along
Yes.
the way. The story of the archer, it's like thousands and thousands and thousands of arrows shot, and you get the bullseye. It's who the archer became along the way. The bullseye is the sort of result of all these hours of practice, but the tenacity, the discipline, the getting out there, the focus, the energy, the breathing, that person became something very unique. Had way more to do about that than this bullseye, right? It's who
Mhm.
we become and who we
Mhm.
identify ourselves as. A healthy person, right? If you want to be healthy, you want to get healthy, identify as a person then that does healthy behaviors, and you want to bring health into your home. We're a healthy home. These are the things we do as a family, and learn to prime the environment and learn to nudge in those subtle ways that might lead closer to that bigger goal, right? We can't just overhaul our entire life in one day. Well, we can chip
Mhm.
away. And so it's January 14th now as we're recording
Oh
this,
gosh.
right?
It is.
A couple weeks
Yes, it
in,
is.
2 weeks
Yeah,
in,
so this airs
and
probably the 16th.
the
Yeah.
New Year's resolution people are, you know,
They're in
here we go,
it.
right?
They're in
But
it.
think of yourself beyond that, and
Yeah.
think of your systems that you're putting in place.
Yeah. Well, even if you're sitting there, whether it's the woo woo, it's not springtime, I'm still in
Right.
hibernation, but your mind game is still on. You're still training your Jedi mind. So you could be making sure you're not sleeping until 10.
Yeah.
You could get your tasks done. Is the laundry piling up? Just getting yourself in a system, in an
Yeah.
organized system that's setting you up for all those little mini successes so that when it comes time to, you're like, okay, it's thawing out. I'm going to get out there and run a little more. Your brain is like, okay, and
Yes,
let's do
yes,
it.
and yes, and
Yes,
yes,
and
and yes, and
the
yes, and
excuses start now with, oh, but it's so cozy out. I'm going to stay in, or, fine, then do something motivational, accomplish it within, tackle that junk drawer,
yeah. And
little bits of
if you
success.
associate these little things with the benefits while you're doing them, that really matters too in terms of self-talk of, wow, look at how organized I'm getting. Look at how strong I'm getting from doing this. Look at the benefits that I'm getting out of this. My lungs are becoming healthier. Now, pain is
Mhm,
weakness leaving the body, as they say. Like, look at all this weakness leaving my body. Reminding yourself of the benefits of why you're doing it, not with the difficulty of doing it. And
mhm.
we're motivated by those benefits. Those are the cheese at the end of our maze.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there's a lot of things about human beings that we are, the reason that we get a lot of paralysis by analysis is that, we're programmed for safety, and
Mhm.
predictability is very
Survival.
safe and
Yeah.
survivable.
This
And
is
so
ancient. Mhm.
tricks are needed, because the
Yeah.
modern world is a different environment than humans have lived in throughout civilization, and it requires new angles of approach. The modern food environment, right? Having a refrigerator, having stores, that's unprecedented, and so it requires a new way of thinking, a new set of behaviors, because we kind of our primal instincts are tricky in that scenario, because when there was periods of feast and famine, right? It's like, okay, when food was there, you get at it, right? And you're preparing yourself, and then if there's a famine or a drought, you're kind of prepped that way. We don't
Mhm.
have those same cycles now, and so we've got to think through these things a little more sophisticated way. We've got to
Yeah.
mindfully, intentionally set up the environment, right? If you're
Yeah.
going to go on the hunt, so to speak, in your kitchen, for food and going in the fridge, what food is available there
Mhm.
right? Being mindful of what is on hand, because if you're just going to think that you're going to be able to come up with some kind of magical willpower when you're starving and there's like, a bag of Oreos
Everything's beige.
and a bowl and everything and a bowl of fresh fruit, it's like the yummy, hyper palatable stuff is just going to trigger something very primal in us of like, I want energy and yummy and
Hunger always
right,
wins.
hunger always wins, right? All of
Mhm.
these things come back around.
I know. We got 22 episodes of recall in this one.
It's a Jordan episode, man.
Yeah. You
The
want
GOAT.
motivation, man. We made it to the 23rd episode. One foot in front of the other.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think what Heidi, 90 something percent don't make it past episode 21. So
I
we're
know.
we're elite.
I know. At
But yeah,
last.
I'm excited about 2024. I'm
Yeah.
excited for the challenges that I'm taking on. Heidi, do you have some challenges that you're gonna be
Oh,
embracing
yeah.
this year?
Well, we started already. This was our first full week back at the center, and I'm outside. So
Yeah.
we've been really lucked out with some weather, but we also set ourselves up for this. You set us up selves up for a system of success. We made ourselves cozy. We realigned our nook and everything. And we also have been saying yes to more invitations. Hence, my little lady went down. Her immune system was a little down, so she was still. Sorry, it's just gonna
Oh,
happen.
it's awesome. Yes, and
Yes, and yes, Bo.
we love
Bo's
it.
better. Bo is ill,
Bo's better. He's
and yeah,
barking, happily
yeah,
barking.
yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of the baby steps and reminders, okay, dude. I think did I even talk about touch into this last episode? I don't think so. But over the holidays, I was told I've begun the process of macular degeneration in my
Mm,
eyes. So my left eye
lutein.
hasn't. Yes.
Get some
Um,
lutein in your
I have. Yep.
there you
My
go.
galactic man threw me on this mix of 4 macular. What I can't even call it the right name. But, basically,
Carotenoids.
my eye doctor,
Mhm.
was even asking me questions as I go, "Well, I'm looking at the risk factors." I started my research, looking at the risk factors. I'm not sure what aligns with me, unless I have a heart disease I don't know about. And then I went to
Mhm.
fear, and now I gotta get blood work. And she's like, "You have light-colored eyes." You know, you never wear sunglasses, which I don't. I don't really like sunglasses. And you have light-colored skin, you're susceptible. But you may have it, but it's not going to take over if you don't let it. Even she's saying that take your
Yeah.
vitamins, keep it at a chill. It doesn't mean you're going to be for sure blind. My case in point, there's one exercise she gave me, just
Mm.
this one. And she goes, put this somewhere, print it. It's a little grid. Look at it every day. And it was like this challenge. I could hear my body go,
Mm.
hey, I'm told to do something. I'm not going to do it. But it's at the same breath. I'm a mother. I want my eyesight to be great. So I made it okay, I'm going to follow through with this. And I put it exactly where I'm going to see it every day, where I put my contacts in and everything. And now that's my little eye test. But I had to tell myself, don't self-sabotage this.
Mhm.
Don't pull yourself down, because I could feel the
Mhm.
holiday like sugars and things creep in and cloud my judgment and say, "Oh,
Mhm.
you don't need to do that. We'll find another way." That's just they don't. What do they know? No, I'm like baby step one foot in front of the other, and I'm looking at my test every day. And it's nothing. It's part of my morning routine. It's like
Yeah.
it's 5 seconds of my life,
Mhm.
and it doesn't nag me to the point where I'm going to self sabotage and escape. That was a lot of stuff, but,
No,
it's
it's
been
this is
it helped me line up. Yeah, I was
these
like,
are
it's not
things
like, "I need to lose weight." It's like, "No, your eyes are in trouble. You gotta do this thing." Okay,
and
let's
that
do
and
it.
those things can be incredible blessings, right? Not to
Yeah,
downplay or anything, but
sure.
when you have something that's, a diagnosis, it's definitive, right? To some degree, it's like, okay, we're seeing this. Here's a strategy. Here are some things that you have to do to take this on. It can be great because
It can be
it
empowering.
will literally focus you, pardon the expression, but it can focus you into other areas of your health. I found that health challenges in general, you don't wish them on people, right? You don't want somebody to have to suffer with anything. But when those things happen, they can center us, focus us, redirect us in so many positive ways that when we take that on, we become aware of other things. I always tell people it could save you from something else that could have been worse that you just
Yeah.
will never have
Yeah.
to deal with, because that redirect gave you overall better health.
Mhm.
And I mean, I can speak to that. I have a birth defect in my kidneys, and knowing that at an early age focused me into wanting to be a healthy person because I didn't want that to go wrong. But what that did was it carried over into healthy behavior. And who knows the other bullets that I dodged? And we can
Yeah.
never know. We can never know those bullets that we dodged. And so
Yeah.
you have this challenge, but this now is a golden opportunity to like lock in, do the steps needed. I think you can completely resolve it, by the way. We can
Yeah. Yeah.
talk we can talk outside the show even about
Yeah.
that. But this is what it's all about, guys, is
Mhm.
is challenges are gonna come, and we wanna set ourselves up. If times are good, I recommend everybody, like, if times are good, put some voluntary struggle in your life. If you're struggling now, take a breath, take a step back, know that this will pass, and look at it as an opportunity to slow some things down and take an inventory. But wherever you're at in life, there's possibility for tomorrow, and there's hope for tomorrow. So that's at
Ooh.
23. Let's put it in the books.
Slam dunk.
Slam dunk.
Little shout out to our little MJ. They're making a movie about him, right? Air, I think it's called, about
Well,
Michael Jordan,
there
about the
was a
shoes.
there was a movie
Oh, there
that came
was.
out last year.
Oh.
In fact, I saw it. A quick aside, that was my first date with my girlfriend.
Ah.
And we went to a brunch, and our server was named Jordan that same
Oh,
day.
that's so cute. You know,
So
my little dudes at school,
there
they
you
talk
go.
about these little Jordans. I'm like, what are you guys worried about? You never get into labels and things, but it's funny how I love telling them stories about the 90s and being in Chicago. Let's just
Pretty
say
epic.
I'm the cool teach.
Pretty epic. We were we
That's a,
were we were there for some pretty epic times.
it was pretty awesome. Yeah. Well, I tell you time and again too, that man persevered. Talk about pull your bootstraps up time and again. And
Yeah.
that's honestly to me, New Year's is finding your coach's voice again in your own head and just pull those bootstraps up and keep going and keep moving through things. You don't have to
Watch
conquer them and slay them. Well, I guess you can, but don't also just say, okay, I'll come back to this. I'm going to come back to that. No, just move through it, get it done. It
watch the
feels so much
Jordan
better.
watch the Jordan, what they call the flu game. He might have been food poisoned. I think it was food poisoning, but they kinda call it the Jordan flu game, where he was sick in the
Mhm.
finals, and
He
he ended
still
up
killed
playing
it.
more minutes than any other player. He scored more points.
Yep.
He had to be carried off. They had to put IV fluid in him after the game, all this. Pippen was holding him up. There's that classic iconic image of Jordan just kinda leaning on Pippen, and he's just literally carrying him, holding him up as they're walking off the
Yeah.
court. And Jordan, interviewed later, said, "I just told myself to keep going, and there was a job to do. I thought of the task at hand." That did not come, that was a product of his entire life
Mhm.
and pushing himself harder than even the coach could push him. He was his own coach. He had that self-talk, and so if this is our Jordan episode and it's about motivation, I mean, there is a guy who was able to go to those places and dig down and persevere and pursue because he had those tools. It wasn't left to chance, because I'll say this about Jordan. As spectacular as he was, the one thing that most players have said is he was the most fundamentally sound player of all time, meaning that came from learning basics
And the hard way, right? He learned
the
things
hard
the
way,
hard way.
doing the same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
Being boring in some ways, like, "I'm gonna take 500 free throws today. I'm gonna do 200 jump shots." Right? That's what success is. Success is repeatability. and
Mm.
patterns and continuing them. And these little things I was talking about, you have to do them, but when you do them again and again and again, you'll start to surprise yourself with how much you're able to move yourself into a state where now you're motivated.
Hmm.
Where 5 minutes ago you weren't, and now you are. You were able to walk yourself using technique, fundamentals to pull off the spectacular. You cannot do spectacular things without boring sitting there somewhere behind it. You know, that's for every
Mhm.
spectacular thing you saw Jordan do on the court, it was a product of doing a lot of boring things again and again and again because he had that repetition under his belt. He knew his body. He had a sense of space on the court. He practiced shots from every angle again and again and again and again and built up that reserve of fundamentals. It's like that with everything.
It's beautiful. Yep. I think that's a mic drop.
Kidsgethealthy.com.
Here we go.
Catch me on the gram.
Ah, you're so
Kids Get
lovely,
Healthy,
Lawrence.
kidsgethealthy.com and Kids Get
The
Healthy
gram.
USA, Kids Get Healthy USA on Instagram. Heidi, you're
Yes.
on point.
And big shout out to Rainbow Chefs Academy, who
Rainbow
as well
Chefs
have a beautiful
Academy,
Instagram too.
rainbowchefsacademy.com, and we are doing
Mhm.
amazing things this year for
Yes.
the future of our country. It's all about
Yay.
the kiddos.
It's all about the kiddos. You can read Lawrence at kidsgethealthy.com.
Lawrence at
Give him a chat.
kidsgethealthy.com if you want
Mhm.
to email me,
Mhm.
or, just direct message me on Instagram, whatever you'd like to do.
And if know anybody who is watching this and coming across this feed and this resonates, and perhaps you do have a family or you are curious about how Lawrence proceeds with his clients and you'd like to demonstrate for someone, let's step right up. Let's have you on board and let's see what Lawrence does in live action and have him work with you
That
and
would
your
be
child or
amazing.
you and your family. Yeah. I put myself up there if no one says anything, but I don't want anyone to think that you already know my family. So I want to
Yeah,
try to
well,
we're
yeah, I think
casting everybody.
I think it would be great to have, some listeners join us and
Yeah.
just to see again, like to kind of see how I operate and the
Yeah.
process of it,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
that'll be, a great thing to add on to the program.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, you heard that here first, everyone. You can
Mhm.
reach me, Heidi, at all my links on Linktree, and you can read Lawrence at kidsgethealthy.com. Thank you again so very much, Lawrence. This was very motivating. I knew, and thank you for spearheading to this back to the new year. I'm finding my synapses for having not slept too well, but it was divinely timed subject. Let's just say that. I
It
love my
always
motive.
is.
It
It
always
always
is.
is.
Thank you so very much, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit like and subscribe and share.
Yeah.
We do appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you soon. We'll see you in 2 weeks, Lawrence.
All right.